Hey bookworms, Matt here, and today we're going to be reviewing Elantris. So Elantris is a really special book to me. It is the first book I read that got me into writing and reading fantasy. And I can thank my friend Ashley for recommending this book to me. This is her book actually, I stole it. But yeah, as Brandon says, the author of this book, there are three key pillars to writing: plot, characters, world building. And this book does a great job with all three. I'm probably going to start with the weakest of the three areas, which are the characters. I'm not saying they're bad, but they do have some struggles. So, let's start off with Rayden. Rayden was, for me, I think my most interesting character. He was the one I most enjoyed the chapters reading. I think that's because he's a really incredible character. From the get-go, he's put in this horrible situation where, he's cursed with this horrible affliction where he's immortal, but his pain keeps on accruing and accruing, and he's thrown into this really violent place where, from the very first chapter he's in there, he stubs his toe, and he carries that pain throughout the entire book, pretty much, which I think is a really interesting struggle that he has to combat, because, a lot of characters, in fiction, go through these horrible situations where they have to rise up and, lead a bunch of people, and he does that, and he does it really well. But, he has this horrible problem that he is literally in a race against time, because he's in a dangerous place, and one bad, trip or, a stab wound would just do him completely, because that pain would never go away. So I really love how he tries to be careful and tries to use his words to convince these gang lords to, re-embrace their humanity. I think that was a really good trait of his, that he always saw the best in people and tried to bring that out of people. I guess the only thing I'd say, in terms of criticism, and Serene has this problem as well, is that he feels a bit too perfect. I think, because I've read basically all of the Cosmere, which is Brandon Sanderson's shared universe, and I'm going to be reviewing that later, so if you're interested in seeing that, please like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments. But in some of Brandon's later books, I think he writes a lot more interesting characters, in the sense that Vin or Kaladin, Kelsia, these characters have deep character flaws that they spend all of their, lots of their page time fighting and struggling with. And they have this inner turmoil that I don't think Rayden really has. I think just from the get-go, he's amazing. And, it's not to say it's not cool that he's amazing. It's just that I would have liked to have seen him struggle more with perhaps his relationship with his father than he really had. And Serene obviously also struggles with this problem. I think from the get-go, she instantly turns up and she is a political mastermind. She's pretending to be this really, dumb person who, has no sense of the court, when really she's using that to accrue power. She is this brilliant swordswoman and teaches all the ladies of the court to do that. She instantly starts to pick up the band of rebels that Rayden left behind and use all of them. Once again, she's amazing, but she does struggle with failing, it's weird to say, but I guess also Serene struggles in that I feel towards the end of the book she becomes a bit of a princess to be saved, if you know what I mean. I don't think her strength that Rayden and Rayden don't have as much is she is brilliant with her logic and her wit. I don't think she really had enough opportunities to use that towards the end of the book. I feel she becomes captured, and it kind of becomes Hrathen and Rayden's role to save her, which I guess was a bit disappointing. There is that one scene where she uses her, she gets in a sword duel with Dilaf, who is terrifying and a brilliant primary antagonist. Just really gruesome. Every scene he's in, he completely dominates it. But she's quickly overpowered, And I just feel in a world where Rayden is this godlike being by the end of it, and Hrathen is trained as an assassin warrior, I would have liked to have seen her have more chances to use her logic or somehow to escape it. And Hrathen, finally, the third main character. Hrathen is probably the best character in the book. He has internal conflict. His entire character arc is a redemption arc because he's struggling with the actions that make him an antagonist at the start of the book, where we're told he brought down single-handedly the nation of Duladel, which we're told through Galadon was a democracy. As a Westerner, that really hits home and makes you fear this guy because he's already done it. He's already brought down that nation. He's here to do it again in Arelon. So you're scared from this guy from the get-go. But you see, through his interactions with Serene and seeing the brutality from Dilaf, you see he comes to regret what he's done. He comes to see that he's done wrong in the past and he's trying to make up for it. I really love that about him. And I think it's also a really good arc because it's not just a slow progression to being a good person. He really goes for it when he gets the fake poison or whatever it is that makes him look like an Elantrian for a week to make him seem like his faith to the Gjorn, to Fjorden, is what has redeemed him from this curse. He goes really incredibly deep on it. I think that's a sense that kind of shows how humans, we often, when we are challenged on our deeply held views, we get incredibly defensive about them, and sometimes we can react extremely on those views to challenge whilst we're changing them when we're learning that what those views are maybe wrong. And by the end of the book, he has finally completed this wonderful arc where he throws everything away, everything he treasures dear, to protect Serene. And I think the fact that it says that he's come to fall in love with her, I don't know if... I don't think I bought that enough. I think I would have needed a bit more to personally buy that. But still, I was really happy with him. He's really complex, he's deep, and he's really dominating. And what I love is that he's done all these bad things, but he's doing them from a place of empathy, which you don't see with Dilaf. And I think that's what differentiates the two, because they kind of have similar goals, but Dilaf just wants to cause suffering, whereas Hrathen's main goal, he says it in his mind, is he wants to stop the suffering because he doesn't want as bad a bloody war or whatever to happen. So those are my thoughts on the characters. I think next I want to look at the world building, which for me was the biggest strength of this book. You can see Elantris there actually on the cover. We're told from the very first chapter that Elantris is this towering black fortress of a city. Its walls are described as like 10 stories high or something. And that makes you think, wow, what could have caused this? And we learn all these fantastical things about the Elantrians. And, it makes you wonder, the book's called Elantris. It makes you wonder, well, how is this problem going to be solved? I think from the get-go, the fact that Rayden is afflicted with, the curse, I've forgotten his name, and his whole mystery of discovering the magic shows that he's going to figure out a way to solve it, but we don't know how. And we kind of end up detectives ourselves, like Rayden is, because we are getting the same information he does, and we can make guesses. We learn that a chasm opened up the same time that the Elantrians fell, and a load of people saying, oh, it's a curse because they were pretending to be gods or whatever when they're not. When we learn that the truth was that an earthquake that caused that chasm broke the magic, because the magic, which Sanderson has excellently crafted, as he always does with his magic systems, is about drawing, and whether with your fingers or actually on something. The entire city of Elantris is a giant drawing that channels the Aeon Door, which gives them all their magic. and him finally figuring that out right as he's like, on the cusp of death, and creating the final symbol that brings them back to life, gives them all the energy right at the end. I thought it was incredible. I thought the whole magic and the plots around it were brilliant. I thought, I thought it was really interesting too how Arelon is this kingdom it used to be a city that's one of the 4 cities or whatever that surrounded Elantris, and it's just trying to pick up the pieces and is being handled poorly by traders who don't really know anything about ruling. We really see not only where the things are today, but we have a good understanding of the events in the past that have led to the situation where all the characters and the world is today, or at that point in the book. So I think for that reason, the world building is by far the strongest point of this book. I loved it. It was absolute masterclass in that sense. I guess finally, the third point we have is plot. So I think the plot is really good for a lot of reasons. If you've heard the term Sanderson Avalanche or the Sanderlanche, Brandon is really good at taking multiple characters who have different values, different plots, and maybe in different places, and having them all slowly interact with each other, like indirectly or directly, a bit more until their plots come together in this crescendo right at the end, where all of them come together in like perfect harmony of 200 pages of nail-biting action. And Brandon, from his first book, has done an excellent job at that. I do think it was maybe a bit slow at the start of the book. And I guess part of the problem with that, for me at least, was that I feel when you're comparing Serene and Harathan's political drama, because that's really what it is, to Rayden's super fast accruing power of the entire city of Elantris, it feels like there's a pacing problem there. I think that's probably why I enjoyed Rayden's chapters the most, because I think they were paced faster from the get-go, and so I was much more involved with their chapters than I was with Serene's or Harathan's, which I thought took a bit more time. And it's not to say nothing happened. With Serene, we get that brilliant scene where she suspects Rayden's own father, Iadon, of something, and she follows him and finds out he's doing a murder ritual to try and kill her. There's also a really terrifying scene where Dilaf sets the Elantrian on fire in front of Harathan. I thought, it was brilliant, but terrifying, but brilliant. But when we compare that to just how fast Rayden is doing his plot, and how Rayden is using magic, or trying to discover magic where the other two aren't, I felt that the plots weren't all on the same level of intrigue, at least for me. But overall, I'd still say the plot was really, really good. So I guess in summary, those are my thoughts. I thought the world building and plot were incredible. I thought the characters were really good. Definitely worthwhile reading for yourself. But definitely not as good as maybe Brandon's later characters. So I guess overall, in terms of what rating I'd give it, that I think of that and I think, well, I couldn't honestly put it on the same level as maybe the Stormlight Archive, if any of you have read that. Because every book of that I would give a 10 out of 10. I think they're all masterpieces. This book for me was great, but I wouldn't call it amazing or a masterpiece. And I think it'd be an insult to masterpieces or great books to give it that same rating. So for me, I'd probably give this a 7.5. I mean, I could maybe push for an 8, but I'd give it 7.5, 8. That's kind of the region I'm going for. I'd really recommend you pick it up for yourself, give it a read. It got me into the Cosmere, and I think it's a brilliant introduction to Sanderson's heroic fantasy, which is quite different to a lot of the more dark fantasy I think you find today. Game of Thrones is obviously the biggest name in that, but I think you'll love it, and I hope you do. But that's all from me. What did you think of my review? What did you think of the book? If you have anything else you want me to review, please let me know in the comments below. Hit subscribe and like so I can put more of these out. But apart from that, I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.